The phone screen lit up in the dark of the hotel room at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday in November, and Renata Ose had been awake already, had been lying there with the curtains open and the city doing what cities do at midnight. Lit, indifferent, going on without her, and the screen said, "Unknown number, we miss you. The twins made you a card. Come home." She read it twice. She set the phone face down on the pillow. She picked it up and read it a third time. Then she typed 2 words and sent them before she had fully decided to. Stay there. Some messages arrive for the wrong person at exactly the right moment. The message doesn't know. The moment doesn't care. The question is only what you do with the collision. The man who had sent the message was named Jerome Lattimore, and he had meant to send it to his mother. He understood this clearly at 11:48 p.m., when the reply came back from a number he did not recognize, and he sat up in the dark of his living room, the twins asleep down the hall, the TV still going quiet in the corner, a glass of water going warm on the coffee table, and he read, "Stay there." He looked at his phone. He looked at his mother's contact, which he had apparently failed to select. He looked at the message chain with the unknown number. He typed, "I think I have the wrong number. I'm sorry." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Don't be. Who are the twins?" He looked at this for a moment. He was 34 years old and had been alone, specifically, quietly, structurally and thoroughly alone in the way that built up over years rather than arriving all at once, since Keisha died 5.5 years ago, 8 months after Deja and Miles were born, in a hospital bed in a city that should have caught what it missed. He was not, by this point, a man who talked to strangers about his children. He was a man who got up at 5:30 and made lunches and drove a van, with Lattimore heating and air on the side, and picked up the twins at 3:15 and made dinner and did bath time and did bedtime and then sat in the living room with the TV going quiet and sometimes called his mother and sometimes did not. Keisha had been a labor and delivery nurse, which was one of the things he thought about when he thought about the specific cruelty of what had happened, that she had spent her working life in rooms where the stakes were exactly that high and had known how to manage them, and had died in one of those rooms 8 months after giving birth to 2 people who were now 6 years old and whose faces were her face and his face in a combination. That stopped him, sometimes in a way he was getting better at managing. She had been funny. He had not said this to enough people since she died, that Keisha was funny, specifically funny, with a dry wit that sometimes flew completely over the heads of people who were not paying attention and landed perfectly for the people who were. She had made him laugh every day for 7 years. He had not, in 5.5 years, found a replacement for that specific thing, not the laughter exactly, but the daily sense of another person finding the world absurd in the same places you did. He missed it precisely and could not approximate it. What he had done instead was become meticulous. The apartment was clean and organized in a way it had never been when Keisha was alive, when life was messier and funnier, and he had not needed the order to feel oriented. The kids were on schedule. The business was on schedule. He called his mother on Sundays. He showed up for every school pickup and every recital and every moment that had a specific attendance requirement, and he showed up early, and he stood in the front of the parent section at Deja's winter concert and felt the thing he was not going to cry about and did not cry about, because the twins needed a father who was present and sturdy and would be there for the next one. He was present. He was sturdy. He was also, most Tuesday nights after the twins went to sleep, a man sitting in a quiet apartment, looking at the TV, going quiet and occasionally calling his mother and occasionally not. He typed, "My kids. 6 years old." I was texting their grandmother. The dots appeared again. A pause. Then, "Are they asleep?" "Yeah." "For about an hour." "And you're still up?" "Yeah." "Me too," the unknown number said. Different city. Hotel room. I was also supposed to be talking to someone who isn't answering. He looked at this. He thought about the etiquette of wrong numbers, the understood obligation to correct the mistake and disengage, and about the fact that it was almost midnight, and the apartment was very quiet, and whoever this was had typed "don't be" before he had said anything worth not being sorry for. "Are you okay?" he typed. A longer pause this time. I was asking myself that when your message came. What did you decide? I decided to answer you instead. Jerome set the phone down on his knee and looked at the ceiling and thought about the kind of person who sent that message. He thought about the hotel room, different city, she'd said, and the person who wasn't answering. He thought about his mother's voice, which was what he had called to hear, and about the fact that this was not his mother, and also the fact that he was still sitting here. He picked the phone back up. My name's Jerome, he typed. I'm sorry again about the wrong number. You don't have to keep talking if you don't want to. Renata, she typed. And I want to. Jerome Lattimore had started Lattimore Heating and Air 6 years ago, 3 months after Keisha died, because he had needed something to organize his energy around, and he had known Vac from his uncle's shop, and he had decided that he was going to build something that was his, and that would still be there on the other side of whatever the grief was. He had built it. It was a van and a license, and 3 subcontractors now, residential and light commercial, in the east side of the city. Not large but stable, the kind of operation built on showing up on time and doing the work right and calling people back. His clients called him by name. He had a daughter named Deja who corrected people's grammar, and a son named Miles who had, at 6, already developed opinions about music that did not fully align with Jerome's own. They were, by any measure he trusted, okay. They were okay, because he had made sure of it, every day, for 5.5 years. He was also, by any measure he trusted, lonely. This was not a complaint. It was a condition. He had learned to carry it the way you carried a tool you weren't currently using, on your person, not in your hand, available when needed, not a constant weight. Renata Osei had run Osei Logistics for 11 years. She had built it from a regional freight broker into a company with 40 employees and a regional presence that 3 larger firms had, in the preceding 2 years, attempted to acquire. She had declined all 3 acquisitions with the specific certainty of a woman who had decided, early in the building of the thing, that she was building it to last and not to sell. She was 52, had a grown daughter named Simone in Atlanta, had been separated for 8 months from a husband she had married at 31, and spent the following 20 years learning had been in most ways 2 different people presenting as one. The separation had been correct, and had also been, like most correct things, exhausting. She was in Columbus on a site visit that had ended that afternoon, and could have been concluded over video call, but that Renata had scheduled in person, because she was, if she was honest about it, not yet ready to spend a week in the house alone. She had eaten dinner by herself in the hotel restaurant and gone up to her room and lain on the bed and called her daughter, who had not answered. And then lay in the dark with the curtains open watching the city, and then a message had appeared on her phone that was not for her, and she had answered it anyway. What do you do? She asked Jerome. Fac, own a small business. You? Run a company. Logistics. How's Columbus? A pause that he could not interpret. Then, how did you know I was in Columbus? You said different city. Hotel room. My area code is Columbus. Oh, another pause. Are you always this observant? I fix things for a living. You notice things. I'm from Cleveland originally, she typed. The Columbus office is smaller. I come down a few times a year. Do you like it, Columbus? It's fine. It's not home. What would home feel like right now? She didn't answer for a few minutes. He thought he might have pushed too far, that the intimacy of the question was more than a wrong number warranted. He was about to type something lighter, something to give her room to move away from it, when her answer came, loud. My daughter used to make a lot of noise. She's in Atlanta now. How old? 26. She has her own life. That's the whole point. Doesn't mean you don't miss the noise. No, she typed. It doesn't. He looked at the twins' closed door down the hall. He thought about what the apartment would be like in 12 years. He thought about it longer than he meant to. Do you have other family? He asked. My sister. She lives here actually in Columbus. I should call her. Why don't you? It's almost midnight. She'd want you to call. A pause. How do you know that? Because you said I should instead of she'd be asleep. I should means the door is open and you're not walking through it. The pause this time was long enough that he thought he'd overstepped again. Then, you're a very direct person, Jerome. Occupational hazard. You can't be vague with a furnace. She sent a laugh emoji. Just one. The regular one, not the crying one. And then, it's late. You should sleep. You first, he typed. And then, before he could think about it too carefully, text me tomorrow if you want. Either way. Either way, she agreed. He set the phone down. He sat in the quiet for a while. Then, he went to bed. He lay awake for a while in the dark. He thought about what he had said. Text me tomorrow if you want. Either way. He thought about the words either way and what they had meant when he typed them. The specific attempt to not need anything, while also naming that there was something. He did not know if he had pulled that off. He thought he had. He thought she would have noticed if he hadn't. He thought about a woman in a hotel room in Columbus with the curtains open and the city going on outside without her. He thought about what that looked like. He did not know her face yet. He thought about the specific shape of alone she had described, different city, hotel room, someone who isn't answering, and about how the loneliness of the traveling kind was different from the loneliness of the living room at midnight kind. Both were real, both were his problem, in the sense that he had just made it his business to think about them. He was, he thought, in some kind of trouble. He went to sleep. She texted him in the morning. It said, still in Columbus. My sister and I had breakfast. You were right. He smiled in the van before his first call and typed, I usually am. Don't tell my kids. How old again? 6 twins. Do they know they have you wrapped around their finger? Completely. They're very professional about it. She sent the single laugh again. Then, I fly home this afternoon. Back to Cleveland. Good, he typed. And then, I mean, that you're going home. I know what you meant. He thought about her on the flight home, which was a strange thing to think about a person he had never met. He thought about the hotel room and the curtains open, and I was asking myself that when your message came, and about what it was like to run something you had built and still end up in a hotel room in a city that wasn't home, calling your daughter who wasn't answering. He thought about it more than he would have admitted to anyone. She texted him Thursday evening. Long week. How are the twins doing? Deja corrected her teacher's grammar today. Miles is learning jazz piano from YouTube. How old are they again? 6. Of course they are, she typed. Are you cooking? Made jollof. First time in a while. A pause. Your wife's recipe? He stopped. He looked at the message. He had not told her about Keisha. He had said the twins and their grandmother, and that he was alone at night, but he had not said how. Yeah, he typed, after a moment. How did you know? First time in a while with that particular weight to it. I've heard that before. My wife died, he typed. 5.5 years ago. The twins were 8 months old. The dots appeared and disappeared twice before her message came. I'm sorry, Jerome, that's a heavy thing to carry. You get used to the weight, he typed. You don't get used to it not being there. No, she said. I imagine not. Renata had married David Osai at 31 because he was smart and stable and had the same last name as her family, a coincidence that her mother had taken as a sign and Renata had tried not to read into, and which had ultimately been irrelevant. They had built things together, the company in her name, 2 houses, a daughter who was now in Atlanta working in healthcare policy, a life that looked, from most angles most of the time, like a success. What it had looked like from the inside was more complicated. David was not a bad man. He was a man who had decided early what shape a life should take and who had been consistently surprised over 20 years that Renata's life kept not fitting that shape. She was too much in the office. She traveled too often. The company was too large for what it needed to be. He did not say slow down. He said variations of when things settle, which she had eventually understood meant when you become someone different. She had not become someone different. The marriage had, correctly and painfully, ended. 8 months of separation had produced a cleaner life with more room in it, a daughter who was supportively neutral in a way that Renata understood was love and cost Simone something, and a persistent low-frequency hum of aloneness that she managed the way she managed most things, by keeping moving. She had not been on a date. She had not been lonely in the way that was acute. She had been lonely in the way that was chronic. The difference was that chronic loneliness didn't demand anything of you in the moment. You could be functional and even, some days, genuinely okay. You could sit through a Tuesday in Columbus and have a productive site visit and eat dinner alone in the hotel restaurant and go upstairs and call your daughter who didn't answer and lie in the dark and be perfectly fine. And then a text would come from a stranger, not meant for you, and something would respond in you before you had decided to let it. She had typed "stay there" at 11:47 p.m. in a hotel room in Columbus because it had seemed, in the 2 seconds between reading the message and responding to it, like exactly the right answer to give. To him. To the night. To the question she had been asking herself when the phone lit up. She had been asking herself, is this what it is now? And then the text had come. We miss you. The twins made you a card. Come home. And she had understood that the answer was no. Not yet. Possibly not ever, if she chose it. They texted most evenings that week. Nothing consequential, or maybe everything was. Her company's Q4 problem she was working through, his bid for a new commercial contract, Deja's insistence that her teacher use proper subjunctive, Miles's YouTube piano lessons. He sent her a voice memo of Miles playing a bad but enthusiastic version of something that was trying to be Autumn Leaves. She sent back, he has conviction. That's the hard part to teach. He thought about that for a long time. The texting settled into a rhythm over the following days that neither of them named, because naming it would have introduced pressure. And what they had was the opposite of pressure. It was the specific ease of two people who were already being honest because there was nothing at stake yet. Monday she sent, the Columbus site visit went well. I keep thinking about what you said, about I should meaning the doors open. Did you call your sister? I did. We talked for 2 hours. First time in a while. Good, he typed. That's the right word for it. Tuesday he sent her a photo of the bid packet he was putting together for a commercial job, not the contents, just the stack of it. The printed pages and the clips. Biggest proposal I've done, he typed. Keeps me up. What's the number? He told her. That's real money, she typed. You've built a real thing. How do you know? Because a small operator who couldn't back it up wouldn't bid. You know what you're worth. He had not thought about it in exactly those terms. He thought about it for the rest of the working day. Wednesday she sent at 6 p.m. Bad meeting. Client wanted me to agree that my company's service failure was my company's service failure. Was it? Yes, but the way he said it, he wanted you to fold, not to agree. Yes, and you didn't fold, I explained. Offered the remedy. Kept my face on. That's not the same as folding. No, she said. But it costs something. Yeah, he typed. Doing it right always does. Thursday he sent, Miles has decided Autumn Leaves is too easy. He's moving to all blues. Miles is 6. Miles is 6 and has opinions. Send me the new video when he's ready. He says you have to earn it by telling him your favorite Miles Davis album. A pause. Then, kind of blue. Tell him that. He told Miles. Miles looked at the phone with the seriousness of someone evaluating credentials. She can hear it, he said finally. Jerome did not explain to his son the full context of this assessment. He texted Renata. You passed. I usually do, she said. He could hear the single laugh in it, even without the emoji. Friday morning she sent, I've been thinking about what you said. About this already being something. He read this in the van before a job. He looked at it for a while. Yeah, he typed. It is. I don't know what to do with that. Neither do I, he typed. But I know I don't want to stop. A long pause. Then, me neither. On Friday she sent, can I ask you something? Yeah, why haven't you asked to meet? He sat with this. He was in the van, parked outside a job, not yet going in. Because this is already something, he typed, and I didn't want to ruin it by making it something else before it was ready. A pause. That's a very careful answer. It's a true one. I know it is. Then, Jerome, I want to meet you. He looked at the job site. He looked at his phone. He thought about the hotel room and the curtains open, and stay there, and about the week of texts and the single laugh emoji, and Miles's piano and her Q4 problem, and the jollof, and about Keisha, who had been the only person he had talked to like this since she died. and about what it meant that he was thinking about Keisha while also thinking about this. It did not feel like replacement. It felt like... He didn't have a word for it. It felt like the thing that happened when you had been carrying something a long time and someone offered to stand beside you for a while. He typed his address. "That's my house," he wrote. "Twins go to bed at 8. Come after, if you want. Or I can come to you. Either way." He sent it. He looked at it. He could not take it back. He went inside and did the job. She answered 3 hours later. "I'll come Saturday, if that's okay." "That's okay," he typed. He did not sleep well Friday night, not from dread, from the specific alertness of someone who has something to look forward to and has forgotten what that feels like in the body. He cleaned the kitchen with the specific attention of a man who was trying not to think too hard about what he was doing. He had cleaned the apartment before. It was clean, generally, because the alternative was a kind of chaos he could not afford with 2 6-year-olds. But this cleaning had a different quality to it, a quality that Deja noticed and questioned, and Miles accepted without comment. He had looked at the kitchen when he was done and thought about what it was that he was actually doing. He was letting someone into the specific shape of his life. Not the idea of it, not the version of Jerome Lattimore that existed in a text chain, however real that version was. The actual one. The apartment with the twins' drawings still taped to the refrigerator and the Schwack textbooks on the counter and the mug he hadn't replaced when the handle chipped, because it held the right amount. He thought about whether to take down Keisha's photo from the shelf. He did not take it down. It belonged there. He thought about what she would think of this. He already knew what she would think. She would think about time. Saturday afternoon, Miles asked why the apartment was so clean. "I'm having a friend over," Jerome said. "What friend?" Deja asked. "A new one." Deja looked at him with the evaluating attention of a 6-year-old who has decided she is her household's quality control department. "From work?" "No." "From church?" "No." "Then how?" she asked. He thought about how to explain a wrong number and a hotel room and stay there and a week of texts to a 6-year-old. "I texted her by accident," he said. And she wrote back. Deja considered this with great seriousness. "That's a weird way to make a friend." "Yes," Jerome said. "It is." Miles, who had been listening from the couch, said, "Is she nice?" "I think so." "Does she like jazz?" "I don't know." Miles nodded as though this were a known variable that could be tested. Miss Patrice from next door came at 7:30 to sit with the twins, which she did 2 nights a month, and always brought a magazine she had already read, and a quality of calm attention that Jerome found more sustaining than most things people actively tried to offer him. She did not ask questions. She sat on the couch and put on whatever Miles wanted to watch, and that was enough. Miss Patrice was 71 and had lived next door since before Jerome moved in, which meant she had been there through the twins' infancy and through the specific years when Jerome had needed someone to hold the door while he carried all of it. She had not made a project of him. She had simply been next door, consistently, with a quality of attention that never demanded anything but was always there when needed. She watched the twins on the 2 Saturdays a month when Jerome had after-hours calls. She did not ask questions about his personal life. She had, however, noticed things. "You've been on your phone in the evenings," she said, on Wednesday afternoon, when Jerome came in to confirm Saturday. "I have a call tomorrow about the commercial bid," he said. She looked at him in the particular way she looked at things she had already understood. "Is it about the bid?" He looked at the floor. He was 34 years old. "There's a woman," he said. "I met her by accident. We've been texting." Miss Patrice was quiet for a moment. "Where is she?" "Cleveland. She was in Columbus last week." "You've met her?" "Not yet." Ms. Patrice looked at him. He had the feeling, as he sometimes did in this apartment, of being in a room with someone who could see all sides of a thing at once. "When are you going to?" she asked. "Maybe Saturday," he said. "If that's okay." "It's okay," she said, and went back to folding the dish towel she had been folding when he knocked, and did not say anything else about it, which was exactly right. Jerome was on the front step at 8:15 when Renata's car pulled up. She had told Yolanda on Friday afternoon that she would be working from home Saturday, which was true in the sense that she did work from home on Saturdays. which was also true in the sense that she used working from home to mean any version of a Saturday she didn't need to explain. Yolanda, who had been her assistant for 6 years and knew the difference between Renata Osei working and Renata Osei managing a question by not answering it, had said, of course, with the specific quality of someone filing information for later. She drove to Columbus on Saturday afternoon. She had not told herself she was driving until she was in the car, which was the version of a decision she made when she was being very honest with herself about the fact that she was going to make it regardless. She thought about the text chain as she drove. She thought about a man who had sent a wrong number text to his mother at almost midnight and had responded to her reply with, "I think I have the wrong number. I'm sorry," and then, when she had not let him go, had just stayed, had talked, had been present without requiring anything of her. She thought about the way he wrote, plainly, without cushioning, with a directness she had learned. Over 2 decades of meetings, was rare and valuable and could not be performed. It was either there or it wasn't. In the texts, it had been there from the first exchange. She did not know yet if it would be there in person. She thought, "I am driving to a stranger's apartment because he texted me by accident, and I answered, and I want to see if he's the same." She thought, "This is the most alive I have felt in 8 months." She did not say this to anyone. She drove. He had not entirely known what to expect. She was the person who had sent the single laugh emoji, which was something he hadn't been able to explain and still couldn't. She was tall, in a dark coat. And she walked toward him with the specific economy of a person who had been making decisions for 30 years and was now making a smaller one. She stopped at the bottom of the steps. "Jerome," she said. "Renata," she looked at the house. She looked at him. "I almost didn't come," she said. "I know," he said. "I almost didn't text you the address." She looked at him. "Why did you?" He thought about the answer. He thought about the hotel room and the curtains, and about Keisha, and about carrying something a long time and someone standing beside you. "Because you said stay there," he said. "And I thought you might still mean it." She was quiet for a moment. The street was quiet around them, a November night. A porch light on. "I did," she said. "I do." She came up the steps. They sat in the kitchen until past midnight, the twins long asleep, Ms. Patrice having quietly gathered her magazine and let herself out, and they talked the way people talk when the text record between them has already established trust, and what's left is the physical fact of each other. The tea was a rooibos he had in the back of the cabinet since Keisha. She had kept it for when she came home from night shifts, and he did not think about this until he had already put the kettle on, and then he thought about it, and then he thought, yes, this is the right tea for this. She asked him about the business first, which he appreciated. Not as small talk, but with real attention. She asked about margins, about the commercial bid, about how he had structured the contracts with his subcontractors. He told her. She listened the way she listened in the texts, fully, tracking, occasionally arriving at the useful question before he'd finished explaining the setup. "You're under-leveraged," she said, when he got to the commercial bid. "What do you mean?" "You have the capacity. You have the track record. You're bidding like someone who still needs to prove he belongs." He looked at her across the kitchen table. "Maybe I do." "You don't," she said, simply. "I can hear it in how you talk about the work. You know the work." He thought about "you know what you're worth" from the Wednesday text. He thought about this woman sitting at his kitchen table at 11 p.m., telling him the same thing with different words. "You're going to make me redo the bid," he said. "I'm going to give you the name of a contract consultant. You're going to make your own decisions." He looked at her. She was looking back with the same qualities she had in the texts. Direct, unhurried, not managing him. He was not used to being talked to like this by someone in the same room. He was not sure he had been since Keisha. He made more tea because the first cups had gone cold while they were talking, and because making more tea was a way of saying this is not ending yet without saying it. She held out her mug without being asked. He said, "Why did you answer that night? You could have just not replied." She held the mug and thought about it. She thought about it the same way she thought about hard things, directly, without decorating. "Because I had been lying there asking myself a question," she said. And the text felt like an answer, not to the question, just evidence that there was something else going on besides whatever I was asking. "What were you asking?" She looked at the table. If it was going to be like that. Just rooms. Just work. Just the city going on outside without me. He was quiet. He thought about his own version of that question. The living room with the TV going quiet. The glass of water going warm. I ask that too, he said. She looked at him. I know, she said. That's why I answered. He made tea. She held the mug with both hands and looked at him across the kitchen table and said, You're the same as the texts. Is that good? It's rare, she said. He looked at her. He thought about the message he had meant to send his mother, and about the reply that was not from his mother, and about 5.5 years of carrying something alone, and about the specific quality of this Tuesday night, which was now technically Sunday morning, with the kitchen light on, and Deja and Miles asleep down the hall, and Renata Osei sitting across from him, holding a mug of tea with both hands. He thought about what Keisha would have said. He knew what she would have said. She would have said, Jerome, pay attention. This is the part you're supposed to pay attention to. He was paying attention. He chose to be. Not every door you walk through is one you planned. Some of them you texted by accident. The question, the only question, is whether you go through, or whether you stand on the step explaining how you ended up there. The twins found Renata on Sunday morning. This was not planned. The plan had been that she would leave before they woke up. But it was past 7 when she finally stood to get her coat, and Miles came down the hall in his pajamas the way Miles did everything, with a slight air of inevitability, and stopped at the kitchen doorway and looked at her. Are you the friend? He said. I think so, Renata said. Do you like jazz? She looked at Jerome. Jerome looked at his son. Some, she said. Miles considered this. I'm learning piano, he said. You can hear me play if you want. I would like that, she said. She sat at their kitchen table at 7:15 on a Sunday morning and listened to Miles play a bad but enthusiastic version of something he said was Autumn Leaves, which was the same song from the voice memo, and Deja sat beside Renata and explained what he was doing wrong in technical terms that were mostly accurate. Deja came out 10 minutes after Miles, having heard voices, and she stood in the hallway doorway in her pajamas, the ones with the small stars, and assessed the situation with the thoroughness she brought to all situations. You're still here, she said to Renata, not accusatorially. Factually, I am, Renata said. Dad made eggs. He did. Deja came to the table and sat on the other side of Renata from Miles, who was now showing her his practice notebook, actual musical notation he had been copying from YouTube tutorials, somewhat accurately. She looked at the notebook. She looked at Renata. She looked at her father. Is she staying for breakfast? She asked Jerome. Jerome looked at Renata. Renata looked at Jerome. If you want, he said. She looked at his children, Deja with her arms folded and her father's face and her mother's precision, Miles with the notebook and the piano and the opinions about jazz. She looked at the refrigerator with the drawings taped to it and the chipped mug on the counter and the textbooks and the specific shape of a life that had been built, carefully, from loss. Yes, she said. I'd like that. Deja nodded once, satisfied, and reached for the toast. Jerome made eggs and watched his kitchen be full of sound. He thought about the text he had sent to the wrong number. He thought about stay there. He thought about Keisha, who had made noise. He thought, yes, what we miss is not lost. It changes shape. It arrives, sometimes, through the wrong door, the one you opened by accident, the one you almost didn't open, the one that had somebody on the other side who answered before you'd finished deciding whether to knock.